ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Old Naturalist. I'm here with the Old Naturalist, Mr. Eric Durbin.
That's me, the old naturalist, Eric Durbin.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Okay.
It's a beautiful winter's day. No, it's not, but it's the spring is coming soon, so we're good.
Yes. So we're gonna be actually. You know what? I now that I think about it, I don't know what we're talking about today. So this is exciting.
Yeah, well, we've talked about a lot of different areas, so now we're going to get into like a little bit more remote adventures of the old naturalist, more worldwide, and I had mentioned maybe South America.
Yes.
And so we're going to South America. We're going to Venezuela.
And you've been to Venezuela. We've said a dozen times.
Well, not a dozen. I think 8.
8 times.
8 times. I've also been to Ecuador a few times, Brazil, Bolivia, but Venezuela.
8 times.
8 times.
That's crazy. What year? How about let's start off.
Okay.
What time period? Are we
First
talking
trip was in 1983.
Okay.
And I may have mentioned this else in other episodes, but we were trying to finish up our bird list for North America, for the United States. And we're going to drive down from Toledo to Miami and go out in the Keys and look for those few mangrove cuckoos or whatever that are out there.
Yes.
And somewhere we're discussing that trip, it dawned upon me, and I think maybe Tom Kemp, that if we're in Miami, we're only like 2 hours from the real tropics, from the jungle.
Right.
And that we should not pass up that opportunity. We've been birding in the States for a while, and yes, now you're really working hard, spending a lot of money to get a bird here or there. The first hour we'd be birding in Venezuela, we'd be getting dozens of live birds,
right.
Tropical birds, wonderful birds. So we did that, and it was everything I'd ever hoped it would be.
Now, these type of trips, certainly in 1983, your first one, are you camping?
I think we had camping equipment with us.
Okay.
But we stayed, I think, almost entirely in cheap motels, motels. There's a lot of them down there. Venezuela, at least in those days, was not a third world country. It was a second world country. They have lots of oil money at that time. They had good roads and they had lots of infrastructure. And so we were always able to find a room for maybe in the range of maybe $5, which is something that we impoverished young birders could afford.
Appreciated that.
A gasoline in those days was 15 cents a gallon down there. It was controlled.
Right.
So even those $5.15 were more money in 1983, 1985 than they are now. That was still a pittance.
So before you move on, I just want to make sure I understand this. It's possible for a country to be a first world country or a second world country and then go down. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think that
Is that okay.
Maduro has,
Okay.
and the political developments there have led to this exodus of people fleeing they're starving down there. That's why they're
Right.
in New York City and Texas and places,
Yeah.
because they don't want to starve to death. That's a whole other issue. But in those days, very progressive, very friendly. It is a Latin American country, so it's a little bit different. The cops like to wear black flak jackets and high knee-high shiny black boots and wrap-around shades and carry machine guns. But they were nice guys.
Okay.
They were mostly, they'd stop you at a roadblock and they'd sort of, want something from you. And if you gave them like a can of chocolate pudding or your pocket knife or, $5, they were happy.
Okay, so we are getting shaken down at roadblocks,
yeah,
for sure.
It happened.
Okay.
Not that much, and it was always very friendly.
Okay.
I actually had a nice motorcycle patrolman in Ecuador explain to me the rules about how to bribe police officers.
It's very nice.
And not to over bribe. You give them
Just enough.
just enough.
Okay. All right.
So.
Okay, so
And we're getting off topic. We don't have
we're a
topic.
little off topic.
We have no
so,
topic yet.
So 83 is the first trip.
83. And we had a wonderful trip in, there's different regions down there, just like in the States. We went to the Llanos, which is an open grassland area like the Everglades. We went to the Andes Mountains and the high passes where above the tree line where they had nothing around there but these slow moving sort of giant hummingbirds. They'd walk around the ground. Anyway.
Hummingbirds.
Hummingbirds.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
A little bit. That's
A little facetious?
A little facetious, but
Okay.
big, slow hummingbirds.
Okay.
But the place we had not gone on that trip was the Tepuis. Okay. And in my misspent youth, I spent a lot of time reading pulp fiction from the 30s, the 20s, I don't know what it was. I read all the Tarzan of the Apes novels. And I also read Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World. Now, just so
what else did he write?
He wrote Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
That was his big claim to fame. So that is sort of hidden or covered up for us modern readers. That he had a great series called the Professor Challenger series, an explorer scientist who went around the world into remote areas. And one of his big trips, biggest adventures, was the Lost World. And it was an expedition into the remote jungles of Venezuela to the storied flat-top mountains that rise in the deepest part of the jungle. And on top of these mesas, these are perfectly flat-topped, perfectly sheer-sided, isolated mountaintops, tabletop mountains. And on top of them are dinosaurs and cavemen still surviving from the past. And it's the romance.
So you're going to Venezuela to
And we got to do this.
find cavemen.
And besides that, it's also a great place to see birds.
Okay.
This is like in the southeastern Venezuela. It's south of the Orinoco River. You drive or fly to either Ciudad Bolivar or Ciudad Guiana. And you get a rental car and you drive south on Route 10. And you drive south on Route 10, and drive south on Route 10. And you drive south on Route 10. And then you get to someplace called El Dorado, which is just a bridge out in the middle of nowhere. So you're halfway there.
You've made it.
No.
Oh.
You mean you're going the right direction.
So how far of a drive are we talking?
I don't know. If you drove it straight through, it may be 9 or 10 hours, something like that. But you're looking at birds.
You're stopping on the way.
We're stopping. Oh my gosh! When you get down to this area, this is a very heavily forested, not much populated area.
Is it part of the Amazon? I mean, is it?
Well, it's not. It's identical to the Amazon.
Okay.
This is the Orinoco River Valley.
Okay, but I guess the rainforest or whatever.
Yeah, it's lowland rainforest.
Okay.
And it's the variety of things you just see on the wires. We just drive along, and Tom or Bob or Matt Anderson, whoever was along, that had the good ears, would say, "I hear something," or we'd see something on the telephone wire, and we'd stop and get out and walk around for a half hour,
Right.
and add 50 birds to our life list,
Right.
and then drive on another half mile and stop again.
Now, before you move on, you've talked about other trips that you've taken, and they were fairly well planned out.
Yes.
Do you feel like this kind of trip, or at least maybe, you've got 83, you got 1995 here, I guess.
Yep.
Are these trips as planned out, or are you kind of winging it in some spots?
A combination. Again, Tom or Bob Kemp. This is before the internet, so information is kind of hard to get. But there were bird tour companies already in business, like Victor Emmanuel Tours and some of those. And you could send away for their brochures, and they tell you how great their trip was going to be and where they're going to go. And these guys, these psycho birders, they would glean through and study the bird lists and the locations and figure out
right where the tours are going.
Where they're going. So we were recreating that. We would fly into, Ciudad Guiana, rent the car there, So that trip we would have had, again, carried some camping gear with us. So we were prepared to camp and could camp. And we just drive out until our time went out, and we drive back and get on the plane. We have, it was planned since we had a plane reservation in and out of Ciudad Gana. That was the plan.
Okay.
And then we just drive around and look at stuff,
Right.
which is kind of a plan. I don't know.
No, I think that's good enough. I mean, I just, when you were saying, okay, I'm driving down and I'm driving down and I'm driving down, and you're stopping on the way, like, you probably are just stopping where you see something. Like you said, you see it on the wire, you get out. It's not necessarily a stop.
No.
Stop.
And this is so undeveloped. There's no parks. There's no bird trails.
Mm-hmm.
You just find it on your own. And if you just keep your head up and watch the wires, you'll see something. You'll stop for that, and then you just discover all these other things while you're there. It's really rich in birds. I'm sure it's rich in herps and mammals also. They're so much harder to find, but birds show themselves off.
So 83, then 95 was the next time you end up going?
83 and then 85. Actually, 83 was the first trip.
Okay.
It was just a couple years later we went for the Tepuis.
Okay.
The first trip we just was exploratory, and we just did a little circle through these areas around Caracas.
The flat top mountains.
The Tepuis was 85. That was that second
Okay.
trip.
All right.
Because we had to make another flight further in
Okay.
and drive down from there. And after the El Dorado, we came to it. Next big landmark was kilometer 88. And it's just because it was 88 kilometers from El Dorado. I don't know. And this was great. This area is all forestry. The economy is forestry and mining, gold mining mainly, and some petroleum drilling. This town, Columbia, in those days, you'd walk in, the town was all dirt streets. The miners would be walking around with the shotguns in their hands. The shotgun-toting miners in the streets, going from whorehouse to bar to whorehouse. Constantly overhead were helicopters carrying big oil drums of fuel oil up to remote mining camps or remote prospecting camps for fuel for their machinery and stuff. Just helicopters going and going.
That would be a little annoying
Oh, it's great.
if you're looking for birds.
Oh, right there, right in that town.
Yeah,
Yes, it was.
yeah, you're not looking for birds there.
We stayed there long enough to get a bottle of Coke and
Yeah. Okay.
a bunch of bananas and then moved on.
Okay.
And immediately out of town, you're back in the. Well, you actually go out of town, you find the piles of trash everybody's been dumping from the restaurants and hotels and things.
Jeez.
And then you get in the jungle again. It's just untouched. Seems to be untouched. Then we get there. We're finally getting there. You hit this place. There's a big rock face with a little shrine in it, and it's called the Rock of the Virgin. And at that point, this roadway, which has been kind of sloping slowly uphill, takes off, and it goes up the side of this plateau, and it hairpin turns back and forth as it winds up. It's called, they call it there the escalera, la escalera, the stairway, and it rises up the side of this plateau, and this is an ancient sandstone plateau that has been eroded down through the years, and that's what's left these tabletop mesas scattered around on the landscape. There's over 100 of them. Some of them are small, some are big. Added up, added up, the surface area at the top of these things is over 2,000 square miles. But it's scattered among over 100 different little mountains. But we didn't actually get to the top of the mountains. We just wound up between them. And you might know that in the tropics, as you rise in elevation, the bird life changes at each 1,000 feet or whatever.
Right.
So you're just racking up all these different, these different certain parrots down low, different parrots up high, different down low, different up high.
I think that's an important point to make for anybody who hasn't been to the tropics, because you look at a field guide and it's a two-dimensional image, and it's like you really need to actually read the field guide, because it'll say at 3,500 feet or something like that.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, okay. Well, I'm you know what else I'm thinking about here as you're describing things.
Am I getting too carried away? What? Yes.
No, we're doing all right. But since we're doing video, I'm trying to think. Okay, what pictures is Eric going to be putting?
Well, I'm going to put some pictures.
You're going to put some pictures.
By the way, there's the book. There's the inspiration. This is the inspiration.
Yeah. Okay. What year do you think you read that for the first time?
I was
Or how
probably
old?
10
You're
or
10
12.
years old. Okay.
I was sort of precocious. I read those Tarzan.
I find that hard to believe.
Hard to believe. Those Tarzan novels were republished while I was a kid, and they came. I would read one of those a day. Now these are easy reads, pulp fiction but
Yeah, but
I would get one after school and stay up after bedtime
right.
in the closet. I'd go in the closet because
Yeah.
my brothers were sleeping, but I'd go in the closet and I'd finish it in the night.
Jeez. No,
Until
that's not
that's-
me. We're not. We're alike in some ways. Definitely not that way. So
Well, I guess you had to be there. It was fabulous. The exotic birds. I mentioned mammals. I remember at the Rock of the Virgin, we were up just arriving there at dawn because we wanted to go up. So it was still early. And the road is a tamandua, the little small anteater. He's in the road going, trying to fight us off.
he was felt threatened, and
Well, yeah, because it was the night belonged to him. We were out there
right.
in the middle of
Okay.
I know when you got up the top of the thing, you entered on what they call the Grand Sabana. This is the largest, flattest part of the plateau, and it stretches all the way to Brazil. But you'd see the different mountains around there, and one of them, flat top mountains, one of them was called Tepuis. Oh, by the way, Tepuis is a local Indian name for a flat top mountain. And he's home of the gods or something romantic like that. I don't know.
Okay.
But this was Tepuis. And from that one falls, off the top of it, the world's highest waterfall, Angel Falls. Now, we could not see it from where we were. But, that could be remedied. Because this was the 85 trip when we first got up there.
That can be remedied with a future trip.
The very next trip, in 88,
Okay.
I went back with Kevin White, and we flew from Caracas to straight into someplace called Camp Canaima.
Okay.
And it is at the base, near the Tepuis. So we got a direct flight. Oh, I love this. Talk about cheap. I think we paid $99 for a flight from Caracas down to Camp Canaima, and that included 2 nights accommodations and all the meals.
Oh, good grief.
Now
1988.
1988. Now you had to pay extra to fly up to see the Angel Falls in a small 6-seater airplane, which I did twice in those two days. I say I'm getting ahead of myself. You're coming in there. You're coming in a 737. Yeah, I think it was 37 even back then. It's a major airplane.
It's a big plane.
But it's been operated by a Venezuelan company, Abenza, and the pilots are kind of like, hey, we're taking them to see Angel Falls. They may not get a good look, and yet if it gets cloudy, so it's a clear day, we'll get them a good look.
You're in the 737.
And so he goes on the falls, and he tips the plane over so that everybody on the left side of the plane can get a good look. And he zooms up, and he goes up in the air, and takes a big loop, and comes back,
other side.
on the other side. And we can all see So before we even got on the ground,
You did see it.
we already see it. I've
Yeah.
already got it, photographs. I've
Right,
already been
right.
there, kind of. So we land on the ground. We have a great meal at their dining hall. They give us a little cottage to sleep in. And the next day, we together we both went out. The first time, and I went again by myself because
This is Kevin with his Kevin White.
Kevin White. And they flew us right. The small plane pilot was just as nuts as the big plane pilot. I've got photographs. You're going to probably see them in your first year
Good.
someplace.
We hope so. We hope so.
You're looking out your window of this small little 6-seater, and there's the end of the plane, and there's the rocks. There's little waterfalls coming off the mountainside.
Right.
And so we zoom in around it was again the little boy who dreamed of the lost world.
Yeah,
And
you're
I'm up
seeing
there.
it.
I'm seeing it. It's called Angel Falls. It's called Angel Falls because there's this crazy American pilot called Jimmy Angel who actually discovered these falls in 1933, I think.
That's not that long
That's
ago.
not that long ago.
Okay, but hang on a second. Is it one of these things where he discovered it? He discovered something native people already knew about?
They did not go up in the mountains because they were not a good place for mere mortals to go.
Okay.
So they didn't have a name. They did not have a name
Okay.
until after he put on the maps. Even the Venezuelan government uses that name.
Okay. All right.
I think the Indians have given a name since then because now they take hiking tours up to the waterfall. But Jimmy
Angel.
and actually a few years later he went back and tried to land on top of Tepuis, but it's all wet up there because those mountaintops are always in the clouds. It's really wet up there. It's really cool and wet, so it's like really marshy and mucky. And he sunk his wheels into the muck, and he and his wife and a couple other fellows that were with him had to hike down off the mountain. It took him 11 days to get down.
And he lived.
He lived. He did live, yes.
Jeez.
And you can still see that plane.
It's still there.
Many, many years later, maybe in the 60s or 70s, I don't know, some big helicopter lifted it out.
It's in a museum somewhere.
It's out parked as far as the Maracay Airport. I've been to Maracay. I didn't know I needed to go to the airport. If I go back ever, I will go to the airport and see Jimmy's plane.
Okay. What's next?
Oh, this Camp Canaima.
Okay.
See, there's not one straight through story here where something happens.
Okay.
This is like little
Tidbits.
about this Camp Canaima where we stayed before we took the small flight up there. The airport where they landed the 737. It's a little black strip of tarmac, about as wide as your driveway, and they've got a little thatched shelter where they put the bags going to and from the lodge. They've got a windsock, and they got one set of roll-up air stairs. Manual, push them out. This is where they land the 737s.
I mean, it worked apparently.
Apparently they have a radio in the plane. They can call home and say, "We're going to try to land now. Don't hear from us. Send help as soon as you can." I don't know. But the set there. Oh, it's the lodge is right on a lagoon where the Rio Caroni is coming down. I guess Caroni, one of those rivers, and it's coming off of all these little mini Tepuis, and it's just all kinds of waterfalls coming into this one lagoon. It's very spectacular, and they use it as a setting for a movie, a big movie, Arachnophobia.
Ugh.
Did you ever see that one?
Yeah, of course I did.
With Jeff Daniels.
Not a fan.
The opening scenes of that movie where they're in the jungle
Right.
with the giant spiders.
Yeah.
That was Camp Canaima.
Well, I mean, obviously that movie is ridiculous, but now that I know that, and not that I'm going to be getting to Camp Canaima anytime soon, but
Well, yeah, actually, we need to get Venezuela figured out a little bit better before we can get back there. Apparently, some birding tours are trying to run
Really?
still.
In Venezuela?
But with the problems with the banking situation, money situation,
Yeah.
problems with food situation, I don't know how they're doing it.
Well, I mean, Colombia is still. I mean, it's not. I mean, none of the countries are really all that great right now. But I mean, we've got some people we know. I know Brian Zwiebel he's been in Colombia recently. Ecuador is still on.
And they've had problems also, but
Yeah.
I think it's safe. I mean, there's countries that are actually physically unsafe to go to, or because of the food situation, you really
Right.
wouldn't. If you can't get gasoline, you can't get food. Do you want to go there? I don't
Right.
think so.
No,
Um,
I don't.
no,
You out there, and you guys can.
you got to go to the
Decide.
countries that are available when they're available.
Mm-hmm.
Now it looks like we may not be able to go to Panama in the near future, so you better book fast and get in there.
Well, if we take over the canal, we'll be good.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't think they have land planes in the canal because it's.
No, that's true.
I wouldn't want to.
Anyways, okay. You got a couple more things here. You got a bunch of more things here.
Nothing too important.
Okay. Well, I want to know
You
specifically
asked me
about some birds. Some birds specifically. You mentioned the anteater. But what were some things specifically that you, on these trips to Venezuela, that just kind of blew your mind, or just wildlife wise?
Wow. The number of parrots that
Okay.
we'd see, like down at Kilometer 88, I said, not a good birding situation, but there's, scarlet macaws flying overhead, and there's blue and gold macaws flying over.
The macaws are flying overhead as the helicopters are flying. They're all.
I think the helicopters they sort of pass through the macaw zone, and because they're here, and then the helicopters go up through them, and they just go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good.
There's a bellbird up there, a white bellbird that just knocks your socks off. They're just so loud, it just booms. There's all kinds of fruit eaters.
Well, you got a cotinga on the.
All these cotingas,
Yeah.
cotingas, and birds of Venezuela. They've got these cotingas on the cover here. Yeah, they're on the lowlands.
Show the.
We'll show it to that camera there.
Or
that one? I don't know, that one.
over there.
Well,
over
maybe,
there, over there.
and maybe we'll just cut them out.
I
and
always
just-
want to do like this, and that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Now we're done.
But
yeah.
these you can't believe these things until you see them in real life. Oh, the other thing is, besides the Tepuis themselves, on the road up there to this lowland forest, that's one of the best habitats for harpy eagle. There's something called the Imataka Forest Preserve, and that was where we used to, this all happened 25 years ago. So I'm kind of a relic. People knew I was a relic already. That's why I'm the old naturalist. So I don't know what the current situation is, but that vast lowland jungle had the monkeys and the sloths that the
Harpies.
harpy loves to eat.
Yeah.
And there was an active nest when we were down there, and we drove in to see it. We had a local guide take us in, and the road is just a logging road. And at one point, I got out and looked at where the car was and where the log bridge or the stream was, and there was not more than, an inch or two from the wheelbase to the edge of the road.
So somebody gets out of the car. Somebody says, "Okay, this way, this way, this way."
Yeah.
That's not. I don't want that. If that's what it takes to see a harpy eagle, I guess I'm out.
Yeah, actually, I was in there with your friend Greg Links, and I went in there with Fauna Bob, and we were so excited to rush in there that we overshot the spot where people would crouch and wait for the eagle to come to the nest or the roost or whatever, and we actually ended up underneath the tree.
Where the nest was.
Where the nest was. So if there'd ever been one there,
We
we'd scared it away.
Yeah.
You know, just blew it. Then Greg and I, we wanted to fantasize later. We still stayed around, and we saw Greg and I, not Bob, because he was too much integrity. Greg and I thought we saw a soaring, broad-winged bird that way up that was
Could have
no doubt.
No.
Oh no. Well, you know, maybe not in court, but you.
Well, harpy eagle. That's one that I think. Do you have a picture of a harpy eagle?
Yes, I do somewhere. I do.
Somewhere. Okay.
From
Probably not a very good one. Probably far
actually,
away.
it's probably pretty good if I could find it.
Okay.
That I haven't seen it lately. They did a release of birds in Panama a
Okay.
few years ago, and I think the one I saw up close was
Okay.
had to be a released bird.
So it has a distinction, I think, of being the heaviest bird of prey. And the thing about the harpy eagle that I think, when people think, when I think eagle at least, I do think like you say, okay, up there and soaring, but these birds are
Oh,
in
they
the
hit-
canopy or like in,
Well,
you know,
they feed on.
right.
They're that size because they want to eat monkeys and sloths. So these are animals that are mammals that are quick and strong. Even though they're small, they're very. They have to be persuaded. You need a lot of muscle. The bird needs a lot of sharp talons and sharp beaks to shred them. And so your eagle comes right down along the canopy top and picks off the unsuspecting sloth.
I mean, it really is incredible. I would love to see one, but yeah, it's going to be tough because Venezuela probably is the best place to see that bird, right?
I would guess so. Again, they exist in other jungle situations, but they're so scarce. Venezuela was always kind of the go-to place, at least in that day. I don't know if there's
Right.
another hot spot in Colombia or Peru right now. I don't know about that.
Okay. How about one more thing? It could be an experience, or it could be a bird. It could be a mammal of some sort.
Well, how about an
One more
experience?
thing. Okay, one more thing to end on.
How about the road to Icaburu?
Okay.
Well, the last time I was down on the Tepuis with Tom and Bob Kemp and Wild Bill Creasy and myself, we went all the way down to the Brazilian border. We didn't cross, and we went across. We found this road. It's the worst road in the world. It was where we went onto it. It was churned up mud so deep. Trucks, big heavy mining trucks, were buried up to their fenders, and they just been abandoned. I mean, it was like other trucks, other vehicles had gotten out somehow.
Wait, okay, but you guys are on this road with a Nissan Sunny or something like that?
We had a Zuzu Trooper, but
Okay.
it's more manly, but
Sure.
stupidly wimpy. But it had dried out for some period of time since those trucks got buried and abandoned. So
Okay.
So Bob Bob is a complete maniac when it comes to driving. He and Tom went and scouted where they were like drier patches where they were going to go, and they picked out a route, and we got through that jam up there, that mud hole, and the road itself was this was the sketchiest road I've ever been on. It was just like go over bare rock. I mean, you'd be driving and the road would just sort of go into. It was a dirt road,
Right.
and it would just sort of go into an outcrop of rock, and like you just say, well, just keep going straight because it must be we're aimed that way, so let's just keep going. But you could not tell. And we're trying to go to Icaburu. I don't know why. It was on the map. We wanted to get to Icaburu. That's the name of the
It
town.
is a cool name.
It's a cool name.
Yeah.
And we were driving out there, and we started seeing a sign saying, "Oasis ahead." Oasis ahead.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Well, we had to keep going. Well, we were going anyway. We'd stop and see birds and things. And on that trip, Bill Creasy got bit on his ear by a sandfly, and he got leishmaniasis, which is a terrible disease that eats away your organs. And the only way they cure it is they give you some sort of heavy metal, cadmium or something. And what they do is they poison your body. They make your body so toxic that either either the infection dies or you die. And hopefully
Is Bill still around?
uh, he didn't die of that.
But he did have
He did pass.
it.
He did pass.
Okay.
Well, maybe he did die of that. I don't know. No, but but years later, he didn't die right away of leishmaniasis. So that's the good part.
Okay. All right.
That's the good part. That's the
Okay.
Okay. I was going. So, and finally, we get to what is the oasis? We come out Bend and down the road, along this dirt road. It's Alice place with just jungle and dirt roads, and
Right.
there's a little booth, about the size of a phone booth, a little kiosk, and sitting next to it in a folding chair, under this little scraggly scrap of a tree, is this young woman, and she's wearing clean, pressed shirt, black and white checks, clean jeans. She's got her little legs folded. She's got a little paperback novel, and she's got blonde hair, and she's pretty beautiful. And she's sitting there, and she sees us coming. She puts her book down at the chair and goes around behind a little kiosk and steps inside, and she's got macaroons and lemonade,
That's the Oasis.
and that's what it's, and she's selling. She's got a roadside stop for macaroons, and in the middle of there's nothing. We've been driving for hours, and there's nothing.
And you've not seen anybody else, right?
Not seen anybody else. Again, we know trucks go that way, but there were no trucks on the road that day.
Yeah.
I don't know. And we ate all her macaroons. I bought and ate them, and drank all her lemonade. And we did find out she was German. She was a German girl, and had some little commune, some little agrarian commune in the neighborhood someplace. I don't know what they were growing, or probably dope. I don't know. But there was a little fundraiser. You know how people have farm markets and stuff.
Okay.
So the girls, this girl, would bake up macaroons and sell them to the truckers and any wandering birders that came by. So,
Well,
oasis ahead.
so that was on the road to Ikabaru.
See, I don't remember the birds, but I remember the girl.
Yeah,
the little blonde
yeah.
girl.
Did you notice when he said? I asked him, like birds,
what's
and he
memorable?
really did
What's
struggle with that.
Yeah.
No, but he remembered the German lady.
3,500 kinds of birds.
Yeah,
They're all a blur.
yeah.
Where you saw them exactly,
But that German lady,
she was special.
she was special.
She was one of a kind. She was a one-off.
Okay, all right. Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
We
All right.
got enough time on the clock there?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think we're good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you enjoyed our show here on Venezuela, and I'm not sure what we're going to talk about next time.
More again. This is my disclaimer. Lots of things I told you about. Lots of that's true. A lot of it is factual, so you can bank on that.
Okay. Well, and you can look these places up on the map here, and if Venezuela ever gets back on the
It's a great country. If we can get things worked out, people can. If we went back there and spent some money on bird watching, it would help them out immensely. They do need help.
yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a good one, and we appreciate you watching. Take care.
Bye for now.